Every major political controversy in India, whether related to budget, a new law, or the government policy, eventually reaches Parliament. This is because Parliament is the institution where the government is expected to explain and defend its actions. But Parliament itself does not sit continuously. It meets in sessions, and understanding these sessions is essential to understanding how Indian democracy functions. Hello everyone, my name is Rajni Jha. Welcome to Drishti IAS. In today's session, we will talk about the sessions of Parliament. Let's get started. So the Constitution does not specify the number of sessions Parliament must hold in a year. The constitutional basis for the sessions of Parliament is from Article 85, which empowers the President to summon each house of the Parliament at such time and place as he or she thinks fit. There is only one condition that is given in the Constitution, and that is the gap between the last sitting of one session and the first sitting of the next session cannot exceed 6 months, which means that Parliament must meet at least twice a year. What does that mean? See, in every session, and we will talk about, there are 3 main sessions of the Parliament. In every sessions, there are different sittings. So they meet on different days and they are called sittings. So let's say this was the first session and this is the second session. So this is the last sitting of the first session and this is the first sitting of the second session. There should not be more than 6 months in between these sessions. That is the meaning of this. So that means in a year, at least 2 times the Parliament must meet. That is given in the Constitution. But the convention is different. Convention is, in practice, the President summons the Parliament on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. So basically, even though Constitution says that President can summon each house of the Parliament at such time and place as he or she thinks fit, but in practice, in convention, the government decides the dates of the session and Parliament generally meets 3 times in a year, as I told you. Now, why did the Constitution makers include 6 months rule? The reason was the Constitution makers thought that once the government gets power, maybe it is possible that they would start avoiding accountability. They would not answer. That is why they made it compulsory that there has to be at least 2 sessions in a year. There has to be 6 months rule to ensure that ministers periodically answer the Parliament. Government expenditure is questioned, examined and scrutinized where they are spending money. And laws are debated publicly. Citizens remain represented between elections because in legislature, the people, the elected representatives, they always put the demands of public in front of the government. So citizens remain represented. And for that, these sessions are required because the debate, discussions, they happen in these sessions itself. Now the next is, why are parliamentary sessions necessary? See, democracy is not just about holding elections, as we have talked about this earlier as well. Having parliamentary sessions generally give 4 functions. They allow Parliament to perform 4 essential functions. First is lawmaking. Now, as I told you, in these sessions, debates, amendments, then the laws, they are discussed and then passed. So lawmaking is an important function. Second, financial control. The government cannot impose taxes or the government cannot spend any money without parliamentary approval. So that is the second function of these sessions. Third is executive accountability. As I told you, that ministers answer questions and justify the policies, justify their work that they were doing when the sessions were not happening. So this ensures executive accountability and at the same time representation, because MPs raise concerns, grievances, aspirations of the people. So the people are represented through MPs. Public ideas, public questions are represented through MPs. So representation is another function that happens because of parliamentary sessions. Now, there are 3 sessions of the Parliament. First is budget session, which happens in February to May. Second is monsoon session, July, September. Winter session, November, December. How would you remember it? A simple acronym, BMW. I'm sure you know about this car. BMW, in this order you can remember. B stands for budget, M is monsoon, W is winter session. How would you remember these months? Just remember the months when they are not functioning, right? So first is just a story to remember. First is January. They are celebrating New Year the entire January month. So in January, they are not sitting. Then in June, we know that June is the month of summer vacations. So in June, they are not sitting. And then in the month of Gandhi Jayanti, they are not sitting. So in October, they are not sitting. So whatever months are there in between these, then these sessions can happen. So between Jan to June is February to May. So then budget session happens. Between June to October is July to September. Then monsoon session happens. And again, as you can see, between October to the next Jan, there is November, December. So then winter session happens, which is also the shortest session. Now let's see what exactly happens during these sessions. The first is the most important and the longest session, which is the budget session. The first thing that happens in the budget session is President's address under Article 87. So the President gives an address, or President addresses both the houses of the Parliament during the budget session, and it is under Article 87. Then economic survey is presented during this. In the presentation of economic survey, the government presents a report on the condition of economy, Indian economy, how it has performed in the previous year. Then presentation of union budget, that means here the finance minister presents union budget and it presents the plan for revenue and expenditure of the next financial year. That is presentation of union budget. Now there is a very important point, there is a very important feature of the budget session, which is mid-session recess. It is an important feature of budget session, which is recess. During this period, department-related standing committees examine the demands for grants of various ministries. What does that mean? That simply means that during this session, the department-related standing committees, they carefully study how much money each ministry has asked and where they would spend. Then they present their reports to the Parliament. This helps Parliament to examine and scrutinize government expenditure in detail. Why is this session important? This session is important because government cannot withdraw money or spend money without parliamentary approval, and we have seen that these standing committees are examining what kind of money that they require, different ministries require, how much money they require and where they are going to spend. They are studying it so that the money can be approved, because government cannot withdraw money from the Consolidated Fund of India, or it cannot impose taxes, or it cannot legally spend public money unless it gets parliamentary approval. So this session is very important. This presents Parliament's power over money or purse. Next is monsoon session, which is held between July and September. During the monsoon session, basically discussions happen on current national issues. It questions the government accountability. It basically has debates on controversies that emerge during the recess. So basically what happens during the two sessions, the gap between two sessions is called recess. So during that time, whatever happened of national importance, whatever current affairs happened of national importance, they are all debated in monsoon session. That is why this session becomes very important. Now Parliament here reconvenes after several months. So there are intense debates about what have you done. The executive, they question the executive, what exactly have you done during this recess time? What was happening in the country? So there are a lot of debates that happen during this time. Next is winter session. So this is held between November and December, and it is usually very short. The major functions here are whatever bills were pending from the other sessions, they are passed here. In this session, government policies are reviewed. So in every session, questions are asked about government policies, right? Especially in the monsoon and winter, because there is a recess time in between. So government is questioned about whatever they were working on during that time. So here also government policies are reviewed, and it is very important because here during the winter session, several important laws are enacted. Now, Parliament has accountability mechanism. What are the accountability mechanism? First is question hour, which is, as the name suggests, here questions will be asked. So members ask questions to ministers regarding their policies, as we have discussed, and actions. Second is 0 hour. Now see how you can remember it. Before everything becomes 0, let's talk about it. So it is urgent. So in 0 hour, members raise urgent matters of public importance. Then there are debates and discussions, as we have already discussed, that Parliament discusses government decisions, national crisis, economic policies and foreign affairs. There are a lot of debates and discussions happen, and they're asked questions. That's how they ensure accountability. Parliament asks questions from the executive. That's how they ensure accountability by the government. Next is Parliamentary Committee. Now we have seen that these committees examine the expenditure by different departments of the government and policies in detail. So this also ensures accountability. These are the mechanism by which accountability is ensured in different sessions. That's why these are important. Okay, next is what are the timings, daily sittings. Each session consists of several sittings. Usually there are morning sitting from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and afternoon 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And a sitting has been started, let's say, from the President's address, as we saw in the budget session, right? So sitting has been started. Now that can conclude through adjournment or adjournment sine die or prorogation or dissolution. Let's understand them one by one. So once a sitting has started, it can be concluded by adjournment. Now you must have heard the phrase, the meeting is adjourned. What does that mean? The meeting is suspended. Just like that, here adjournment means suspending the proceedings of that house for specified period. It could be hours, it could be days, it could be weeks, but the period is specified and it only ends the sitting. We saw initially that in every session there can be several sittings, so it only ends one sitting, not the entire session. Second, it is ordered by speaker or chairman, and whatever bills and pending businesses were there, they do not lapse, they stay. Next is adjournment sine die. Sine die means without a date fixed or without a time fixed. So here meeting is or the sitting is adjourned but indefinitely. It ends a sitting indefinitely. It could reconvene, it could not reconvene, there is no clarity. So here it ends a sitting indefinitely. It is ordered by presiding officer, and here also bills do not lapse. Now here the house may still reconvene, but there is no clarity if it will reconvene or not, or when it will reconvene, right? So because of this, because there is no clarity if or when it is going to reconvene, after this prorogation can happen. So after the house is adjourned sine die, the president formally prorogues the house. Prorogues is not the house, prorogues it, which means it ends the session. This mechanism ends the session itself. Up until now only sitting was being ended. Now by prorogation the session ends. So after president formally prorogues it, it ends the entire session. It is done by president, and here also bills do not lapse. So if we talk about the effects of prorogation, there are three things. First, the bills pending in parliament, as I told you, they will not lapse. Second, motions, resolutions and amendments which have already moved, which have already passed or which have already moved, they also don't lapse. But most notices lapse. What does that mean? What is the meaning of notice? Notice means the member of parliament often give notice to ask questions or introduce motions, right? Or to start a discussion. These notices end because the session has ended. They have to give the notice again in the next session. So bills pending will not lapse. Motions, resolution, amendment which have already moved will not lapse. But these notices which are passed by members of parliament or which are given by members of parliament to ask questions, introduce motion or start discussion, they lapse in prorogation. Next, what is the basic difference between adjournment and prorogation? Because it can be asked. First, it terminates only the sitting. Prorogation ends the entire session. It is done by speaker or chairman. It is done by president. In both the cases, bills do not lapse. In adjournment, notices continue, but in prorogation, because the session itself has ended, the notices also lapse. Next is dissolution. This was the last part by which a session or sitting can end. So dissolution is when the Lok Sabha itself gets dissolved. What happens in that case? We know that Rajya Sabha cannot be dissolved because it is a permanent house. So in this case, what happens to the bill? For that, there is a very small trick that you can remember. Whenever the bill is dependent on Lok Sabha to be passed, only Lok Sabha to be passed, in that case it will lapse. But it is not dependent only on Lok Sabha, then it will not lapse. And there is only one exception to this. So let's see. First, bill pending in Lok Sabha, it is dependent on Lok Sabha to be passed, so it will lapse. The third one will come to the second part. Bill pending in Rajya Sabha but not passed by the Lok Sabha. Now it is not dependent only on Lok Sabha, it is pending in the Rajya Sabha, so it does not lapse. Next, bill passed by both the houses awaiting the president's assent. Is it only waiting for Lok Sabha? No, it is not. Then it does not lapse. Joint sitting already notified by the president before dissolution. So it is about joint sitting. Is it only waiting for the Lok Sabha to be passed? No. Then it does not lapse. The only exception is this one, when the bill is passed by Lok Sabha but pending in Rajya Sabha. In this case also it lapses. So you can remember it as exception. The rest you can use that trick to remember, because these questions are asked in prelims. Next is quorum. What is a quorum? Quorum is the minimum number of members required to conduct businesses. It is 1/10 of the total strength of the house. Now the total strength that is allowed in Lok Sabha is 550. So 1/10 of that would be 55 members. That is quorum. Then for Rajya Sabha, 25 members. That is minimum quorum. If in any case, if the quorum is absent, these many members are not available, then the presiding officer may adjourn the house or suspend the sitting. Next, lame duck session, the last part of this. A lame duck session is the last session of outgoing Lok Sabha after an election. So an election has already been done and there are members who are not re-elected. So they are called lame ducks. Now their session will be called lame duck session. So this is the last session of an outgoing Lok Sabha after elections have already been held, but before the new house is constituted. Historically, they were held in 1957 and 1962. Now, before we move ahead to the last part of our session, we have up to 50% sale going on until 22nd July. So it is available on all live online courses for UPSC, PCS, teaching exam, judiciary exam, SSC, CUET. Right now it is available at very affordable prices. So if you wish to join us, please call on this number 87501 87501. Now we come to the end of our session, and this is the question for you. With reference to parliamentary session in India, consider the following statements. First, Constitution specifies that Parliament must meet 3 times every year. The President summons each house of the Parliament under Article 85. The interval between 2 sessions of the Parliament cannot exceed 6 months. You have to tell me which of these is correct. So that's it for today's session. I really hope that you enjoyed the lecture. Until next time, take care.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.